Get ready to dive into one of the most incredible stories in bodybuilding. An athlete who pushed past limits, faced his fears, and earned respect on the biggest stages in the world. His journey goes way beyond just muscle. It's built on discipline, setbacks, and an endless drive for perfection. Every detail of his life inspires and makes you think about what it really takes to chase something bigger. So grab your pre-workout and come along, because what you're about to see is pure motivation. A journey that proves glory isn't always about trophies, but about the legacy you leave along the way. Few names in bodybuilding carry as much weight as Chris Cormier. Born on August 19, 1967, in sunny Palm Springs, California, he grew up in a humble environment, but with a spark that would soon put him among the greats of the sport. Standing 5 feet 10 inches, 1.78 meters, and stepping on stage at a ripped 250 pounds, 114 kilograms, Chris became a true reference in symmetry and proportion. No wonder he earned the nickname The Real Deal. His stats alone turned heads: 22-inch arms, a 52-inch chest, 33-inch thighs, and 21-inch calves. All of this balanced by a razor-thin 32-inch waist, which made his physique even more harmonious. It was the kind of build that demanded attention, whether on stage or walking down the street, cementing his image as a one-of-a-kind athlete respected even by his rivals. But before fame, his path was marked by shyness, doubt, and a lot of overcoming. As a teenager, Chris always stood out in sports. But far from being just a confident competitor, he was actually reserved, almost introverted. Still, whenever he stepped into competition, the shyness disappeared, revealing a natural talent. In 1984, at just 17, he placed fourth in the California State Wrestling Championships, a symbolic win, but one that lit a spark. He realized he had the potential for something much bigger, and that discovery would change his life forever. It was also around that time that his first opportunity in bodybuilding appeared. At only 15, Chris already had the physique to compete, but fear of stepping on stage and posing in front of a crowd held him back. That detail says a lot about his personality. Even though he was a giant in the making, Chris was human, vulnerable, and full of insecurities. Who would have thought that this shy kid would become one of the sport's all-time legends? The turning point came in 1987. More mature and determined, Chris stormed back onto the stage and won the NPC California Championships, Teenage. That same year, he proved his strength again by taking the NPC Teen Nationals in the light heavyweight class. Those early titles were his calling card, announcing that the real deal was just getting started. The future looked bright. But the real breakthrough came in 1993. Chris entered the NPC USA Championships in the heavyweight division, and not only won, but also took the overall title, making him the undisputed champ of the show. With that victory, he earned his long-awaited pro card, giving him the right to compete as a professional in the IFBB. That was his ticket to the big leagues, where only the best in the world stood. That moment in 1993 didn't just change his career, it changed his mindset. Chris went from being a young talent to an elite contender. The shyness was still there, but it was now buried beneath the confidence he had gained on stage. From then on, his mission was clear: to make history in one of the most demanding sports on earth. And that's exactly what he did, building a legacy that still inspires generations today. In 1994, Chris made his pro debut at the Arnold Classic, one of the most prestigious bodybuilding shows in the world. Right out of the gate, he placed fourth, proving he could hang with the very best. That same year, he stepped onto the ultimate stage, the Mr. Olympia. He finished in 6th place, which for a rookie was nothing short of phenomenal. The real deal had officially arrived. Also in 1994, Chris shined at the Ironman Pro Invitational, taking 2nd place. That's when fans and experts realized he wasn't just another competitor. He was a real contender who could define an era. That rookie season didn't just bring him recognition, it gave him the confidence to keep pushing forward. From that point on, Cormier became a permanent fixture at the IFBB's biggest shows. Throughout his career, Chris competed in over 72 pro shows, a staggering number that speaks to both his longevity and his discipline. Very few athletes manage to stay at that level for so long, grinding through strict diets, brutal training, and the constant mental pressure of performing at the top. Along the way, he racked up 12 pro victories and dozens of podium finishes. One of the highlights of his career came in 1997, when he won the Night of Champions, known today as the New York Pro. That win cemented his name among the greats and showed he had the firepower to take on already established legends. But his greatest dominance came at the Ironman Pro Invitational, where he scored for consecutive titles between 1999 and 2002. That historic run remains one of the defining achievements of his career. On top of that, Cormier also shined internationally, picking up multiple wins at shows like the Grand Prix Australia, always impressing the crowd with his symmetry, balance, and stage presence. Even though he never captured that ultimate Mr. Olympia crown, he was consistently among the very best. In both 1999 and 2002, he hit his career-high finish, third place, right behind absolute titans like Ronnie Coleman and Flex Wheeler. And along the way, he still managed to beat heavy hitters like Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, and Nasser El Sambadi. Another jaw-dropping highlight came at the Arnold Classic, the prestigious contest created by Arnold Schwarzenegger himself and widely considered the second most important bodybuilding stage in the world. Chris finished runner-up 6 years in a row, from 2000 through 2005, a record that still amazes fans and experts today. Even though he never took home the Arnold Trophy, his consistency and constant push for the win made him a true symbol of perseverance. Chris Cormier's career proves that success isn't measured only by titles. Even without winning the Olympia, he built a legendary path defined by consistency and the ability to always be among the elite. Whenever people talk about Chris, one thing always stands out: his flawless symmetry and refined aesthetics. At a time when many athletes were chasing nothing but sheer size, Cormier swam against the current. He believed true bodybuilding was more than just mass. It was about balance, proportion, and harmony. That mindset made him one of the most admired physiques of the 1990s and early 2000s. His body was a living example of what many still consider the classic ideal in bodybuilding. Every muscle seemed sculpted to fit perfectly into the whole picture. Arms, chest, legs, and waist all flowed together, creating a silhouette that wowed both judges and audiences alike. More than strength, Chris brought artistry to the stage, reviving the idea that bodybuilding is also a form of aesthetic expression. But Cormier didn't hold back his criticism about where the sport was heading. He openly voiced frustration that judges were putting too much emphasis on extreme mass, while letting conditioning, proportion, and detail slide. In interviews, he even said that on some stages, guys had gotten so massive that it was hard to even see basic details like the triceps. For him, that shift was moving away from the true essence of bodybuilding. His philosophy was always crystal clear: aesthetics should be at the heart of it all. Chris believed the beauty of bodybuilding lay in the ability to build a symmetrical, detailed, and balanced physique. He was proud of staying true to that vision throughout his entire career, even when the trend was going in a different direction. That loyalty to his principles made him an icon for those who admire what's often called the golden era spirit of bodybuilding. One of his quotes sums it up perfectly. From day one, my goal was to build a physique that was balanced and proportionate. For me, aesthetics, symmetry, detail, and shape are the true definition of bodybuilding. That line became almost a mantra, repeated by fans and athletes who draw inspiration from his journey. For Chris, it was never just about winning. It was about winning with elegance and balance. That same style is what set him apart on stage. While some competitors stunned the crowd with brute size, Chris captivated with his smooth presentation, his carefully crafted poses, and the way he showcased every detail of his body. He understood that bodybuilding wasn't only about competing. It was also about entertaining and inspiring. That's why his stage presence always left a mark. But the life of a pro bodybuilder isn't all spotlights and trophies. Behind the glamour of the stage lies a daily grind filled with sacrifices, risks, and constant pain. Chris knew that side of the sport all too well. Despite his incredible longevity on the circuit, he also dealt with injuries that would shape his career and, in the end, play a big part in his farewell. Early in his career, Cormier suffered a serious injury while performing squats, one of the most classic leg-building exercises in the gym. That setback shook his confidence in the movement and forced him to adapt his training. From then on, the leg press became the cornerstone of his quad development, replacing the heavy squats that most athletes relied on as their foundation. That shift showed just how willing he was to reinvent himself in order to keep competing at the highest level. But the toughest blow came in 2006. Just before starting a special prep with the legendary Dorian Yates, Chris was diagnosed with a severe spinal infection. The condition forced him into hospitalization and a long, grueling process of physical therapy. Imagine the frustration. A man used to pushing his body to the max in the gym suddenly having to step completely away from training. For Cormier, it was one of the hardest moments of his life, both physically and emotionally. On top of that, problems with his triceps also hampered his performance in his later years on stage. In a sport where every detail matters, losing strength or definition in such a visible area weighed heavily in the judge's eyes. Even so, Chris tried to come back, proving that his determination was bigger than any setback. His fighting spirit pushed him back to the stage, even though he wasn't at his absolute best anymore. That comeback happened in 2007, when he competed at the Montreal Pro Classic. He earned an honorable 4th place, showing there was still fire left in his competitive soul. But it was also clear, to him and to the fans, that this was the final chapter of his pro career. The injuries, stacked up over decades, had finally taken their toll, making it impossible to maintain the same level of physical demand. The decision to retire is never easy for a champion. For Chris, it meant leaving behind more than 20 years of non-stop dedication to bodybuilding. But at the same time, it opened the door to a new chapter, one where he could share his experience, mentor others, and inspire without putting his health at risk. Retirement, in his case, wasn't an ending. It was a transition into something different. And here's something to think about. How many times in life are we forced to change direction, not because we want to, but because we have to? Chris shows us that even the greatest champions have to face their limits and reinvent themselves. If there's one thing that defined Chris Cormier beyond his flawless aesthetics, it was his training routine, marked by discipline and intensity. He followed a system of 4 straight days of training followed by 1 full day of rest, repeating that cycle almost like clockwork. But there was one detail that made him stand out. Cormier trained twice a day, splitting his sessions between morning and afternoon so he could give maximum attention to each muscle group. This strategic split was one of the keys to keeping his physique so balanced. In practice, his schedule looked like this. Day 1, quads in the morning, hamstrings in the afternoon. Day 2, chest in the morning, then abs and calves later in the day. Day 3, back in the morning, with the afternoon reserved for weak points. Day 4, shoulders in the morning, then arms, abs, and calves at night. Day 5 was full recovery. Among his favorite exercises, 3 always stood out. The leg press, which became his go-to for quad development after his squat injury. The inclined bench press, a staple for building his full and symmetrical chest. And pull-ups, crucial for creating those wide, detailed lats. These simple but powerful movements were the backbone of his training and helped him sculpt the physique that made him famous. But the most striking detail of his strategy was the focus on his waistline. Chris put a huge emphasis on regular training, believing that a tight midsection was essential for keeping his physique in harmony. While many athletes obsessed only about size, he made it a priority to preserve his small waist, which highlighted his perfect V-taper on stage. This kind of brutal schedule demanded not only physical strength, but also mental toughness. Imagine training twice a day, week after week, chasing perfection in every rep. Cormier knew that to stand shoulder to shoulder with the best, you had to live the sport 24/7. His training wasn't just about lifting weights. It was an exercise in resilience, discipline, and laser-sharp focus on his goals. At the same time, he always defended the importance of listening to your body. Despite the intensity, Cormier believed rest was a fundamental part of growth. That's why he kept 1 full day of recovery in each cycle and adjusted weights and reps according to how his body responded. That mix of hard work and smart training earned him respect not just for his results, but for the way he approached the game. And here's the question. Have you ever thought about applying that same philosophy to your own life? If Chris's training was next level, his diet was no different. He knew building an elite physique depended as much on the kitchen as it did on the gym. His meals were centered on lean proteins, the building blocks of muscle recovery and growth. Chicken breast, lean cuts of beef, a variety of fish, and plenty of egg whites were staples on his plate, alongside, of course, the classic whey protein shake. To fuel his energy and handle those brutal two-a-day sessions, Chris never cut out complex carbs. Unlike some athletes who stuck to low-carb diets, he believed carbs were essential for strength, endurance, and muscle density. Oatmeal, brown rice, and sweet potatoes were his top picks, always paired with vegetables to ensure fiber and micronutrients were on point. Chris's diet followed a very clear structure, broken down into multiple meals throughout the day. Breakfast, for example, often started with 8 to 10 egg whites and a cup of oatmeal, packing in protein and energy right from the morning. Throughout the day, he rotated between chicken, lean beef, and fish, paired with rice or potatoes, and always with vegetables on the side. Post-workout was all about a whey protein shake, the quick and efficient ally for muscle recovery. At night, when most people relax and maybe let themselves cheat a little, Chris kept the discipline. His final meal was usually more egg whites or another protein shake. The goal was simple: keep his body fueled through the night and avoid any muscle breakdown. That level of commitment showed how he viewed diet as inseparable from the rest of his life as an athlete. On top of food, Chris kept his supplementation simple but effective. He leaned on whey protein to make hitting his protein target easier, BCAAs to help with recovery, and a mix of vitamins to support overall health. No crazy stacks or over-the-top protocols. His approach was straightforward: consistency and quality nutrients. What's interesting is that even with so much discipline, Chris never turned his diet into something extreme or unsustainable. He believed the secret was balance between heavy training, proper rest, and solid nutrition. Just like his philosophy of building a proportionate, aesthetic physique, his nutrition also reflected that pursuit of balance and harmony. Behind the giant on stage was a man with a simple heart, deeply connected to his roots. Chris always showed great love for his family, making sure to spend time with them despite the hectic schedule of training, traveling, and competing. That connection kept him grounded and gave him stability amid the glamour and pressure of professional bodybuilding. Interestingly, very little is known about his private life. There are no confirmed details about marriage or children, and he always kept that side of his story out of the spotlight. That choice reflected his reserved nature, but also showed he wanted to be recognized for his career and his contribution to bodybuilding, not for personal drama. Among his biggest inspirations growing up, one name stood out: Lou Ferrigno, the bodybuilder who became world famous playing the Incredible Hulk on TV. Lou's presence and charisma pushed young Chris to dive headfirst into the gym. It was proof that bodybuilding could break past the stage and reach pop culture, inspiring millions worldwide. Beyond idols, Chris was also shaped by friendships within the sport. His close bond with Flex Wheeler, another bodybuilding icon, played a huge role in his career. Together, they shared experiences, training sessions, and advice that sharpened Cormier's competitive edge. That friendship didn't just motivate him, it helped him stay focused on his pursuit of aesthetic perfection. What stands out about Chris is the way he balanced his public image with his private personality. On stage, he was imposing, confidently displaying every detail of his physique. Off stage, he was described as humble, quiet, and respectful. That duality only increased the admiration from fans and fellow athletes, creating the image of a complete competitor, powerful, yet approachable and human. Respect in the sport goes way beyond trophies, and Chris knew that. His polite attitude, his kindness to fans, and his willingness to share knowledge made him a respected figure both inside and outside bodybuilding. It wasn't just his physique that inspired, it was the way he carried himself, valuing relationships and integrity along the way. After stepping away from competition, Chris didn't walk away from bodybuilding. On the contrary, he found a new mission: sharing his experience and guiding the next generation of athletes. He became a respected coach and mentor, working with both pros and amateurs worldwide. His charisma and clear, practical way of teaching turned him into a reference point even off the stage. With more than 30 years of career experience, Chris built up a rare kind of practical knowledge, covering everything from training to the mental game of competition. He knew what worked, what didn't, and what could put an athlete's health at risk. That's why his advice is treated like gold by those aiming to grow in the sport. It's no exaggeration to say he's still shaping physiques and mindsets, even without competing. His legacy was so impactful that in 2019, he was the subject of a documentary titled Chris Cormier, I Am the Real Deal. The film showcased not just his competitive journey, but also his life philosophy and the personal battles he fought. It helped immortalize his story and introduce his influence to new generations who may have never seen him on stage. More than trophies, what truly cemented Chris's name was his loyalty to aesthetics and symmetry. In an era when mass was becoming the dominant standard, he stood firm in his belief that bodybuilding should be about balance and harmony. That conviction inspired athletes who now advocate for a return to the classic look, and even influenced modern divisions like classic physique. Interestingly, Chris Cormier is remembered as one of the greatest bodybuilders never to win the Mr. Olympia title. But that missing trophy never took away from his relevance. On the contrary, it made him stand out as an example of consistency, charisma, and longevity. Very few athletes manage to stay at the top for so long, going toe-to-toe with the absolute legends of the sport. His legacy also lives on in the hearts of fans. For many, he represented aesthetic perfection during a transitional era in bodybuilding. For others, he was the ultimate symbol of persistence, a man who never gave up, even when facing injuries or setbacks. That blend of inspiration and humanity is what makes him unforgettable, even years after retirement. And so, we come to the end of the incredible journey of Chris Cormier, the real deal. An athlete who, even without winning Mr. Olympia, left an eternal mark on bodybuilding with his symmetry, charisma, and consistency. His story reminds us that true greatness isn't just about the trophies. It's about the legacy you build and the impact you leave on people's lives. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps our channel reach more people. And if you'd like to support us even further in our mission to share inspiring stories from bodybuilding and beyond, consider becoming a channel member. Your support helps us keep creating high-quality content for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Which part of Chris Cormier's story impressed you the most? His disciplined training, his commitment to aesthetics, or his perseverance in the face of injuries? Drop your answer in the comments below. I can't wait to read what you think. And of course, if you haven't subscribed yet, this is the perfect time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos we're preparing with care and dedication. On the final screen, you'll see another special video connected to this story, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Click there and keep going with us on this journey. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end. See you in the next video.